Hey, welcome back. You're probably wondering why I'm doing another one of these so soon. The plan was to do a video a month filling out as many prompts as I could, and I figured the best way to keep up with it would be to do it in the beginning of the month alongside my bullet journal videos. And when I'm only doing 2 videos a week, it's going to feel like they're happening pretty often, or at least it does to me. Anyway, I'm going to randomly flip to a page, then wag my finger around until I feel like pointing, and whatever prompt area I land on is the prompt I'm going to fill out. And I'm doing this without looking, by the way, not even through my camera. Eyes are totally closed, so if the footage is awkwardly uncentered, that's why. At least you know I'm trying. Though if you can think of any other fun ways to do this challenge other than, blind, I'm all ears. The first one I've landed on says a mouse hole, and considering in the first video of this book I failed spectacularly at drawing a mouse, I'm ready for a rematch. Thankfully, this prompt didn't technically require that I draw a mouse. I mean, I ended up adding one in the end anyway, but that's besides the point. My initial thought when I saw the prompt was a Tom and Jerry style mouse hole in the wall, so that's what I started with. It was a very structural, perspective-based sketch that made me realize my perspective skills are, rather lacking. When I took art classes in school, a lot of the fundamentals were skipped, actually. No perspective, no color theory, no explanations on lighting, or what value or hue or saturation were. Not once. Not talked about at all. We were just given an example of some type of art, and told to emulate it and make our own version of it in 2 weeks' time. Then we turned it in and moved on. I very distinctly remember the order of the first few assignments, and this was every year. It went self-portraits, still life, pointillism, Starry Night reworks. And the teacher always showed us one example and then just gave us supplies and told us to make our own version of whatever example was shown. And generally not even with the supplies that the original used, like Starry Night. No, we didn't use oil paints. We used oil pastels, which, close enough, I guess. But that was it. That was pretty much my universal experience with every art class. Grievances aside, at least I liked art enough to learn the very basics of it on my own. Basic enough that I can draw a simple mouse hole. Probably. Just to make sure it was clear, I even added lines to make it look like the corner of a room. Then I added that little mouse because I was determined to make it look better than my previous, very pitiful attempts at drawing them. Not that this one is much better, but I tried. The page I'm working with is, well, tiny. Who knew? At least it looks believable. Come to think of it, I should have just drawn Jerry. I talked about that not 2 minutes ago. That would have been so cool, dang it. Oh well, maybe I'll try that out in my sketchbook later, if I remember. Anyway, that's how this one turned out. Nice little warm-up. Let's see what the next one's gonna be. When it comes to picking pages, by the way, I randomly pick a number between 1 and 10 and flip through for that amount of seconds in my head. Not perfect, but it works. And I'm picking this page. And this prompt. I say as if I'm doing this during the recording and not just matching up a separate voiceover, which is very tedious. Anyway, the prompt I landed on was finger puppet. It's basically another excuse to draw hands because I don't draw them often enough. I'm getting the hang of them, I think, but more practice definitely doesn't hurt. Well, it hurts my hand that has to remain still while I try to draw it, but that's because I'm too lazy to look up a reference. Of course, I had to look up a reference for the finger puppets themselves because I had no idea what they really looked like. I mean, I had a vague idea that it was like a regular puppet, but tiny. I just had no idea of what though, because the only puppets I've really had experience with are the ones you can make from paper bags, construction paper, and Sharpies. And they don't make teeny tiny paper bags the size of individual fingers, so... Oh, those would be so cute though. Little itty bitty paper bags? I mean, they'd be completely useless, but still. I want to know how to make paper bags now so I can make them all tiny. How many times have I said that already in this video? Teeny tiny, teeny tiny. Yeah, I'm not sorry. It's fun. So I figured since I've been on an animal drawing kick that I would try some new animals. The first one being an elephant. Why an elephant, you ask? I don't know. I thought it was a goofy enough looking animal that I could exaggerate the features without any part of it looking like a mistake. Obviously, if I tried to do a hyper-realistic elephant, it would look weird because it's supposed to be a finger puppet. Could I have done that amount of detail? Sure. But I feel like they don't make finger puppet animals super realistic for a reason, so cartoony elephant it is. As for the second animal, my brain immediately went to mouse, because elephants are scared of mice despite their comical size difference, but when they're both the same size, it kind of puts it into perspective, sort of. I don't really know what I'm getting at or how to explain it, but hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. But since I had this weird issue with drawing mice that made them look more like bears, I ended up drawing a bear instead, like a teddy bear. And I think it worked. For a few seconds, when I was starting the sketch, I thought about making it into a tiger, but in the end, it just looked more like a bear, so that's what I settled with. And I don't think it looks too bad. I mean, it does look like a bear, right? I thought about detailing and shading the hand more, but as I was starting, I realized that I didn't feel like blending that much, and if I shaded the hand, then I would have to shade the animals, and I was getting bored with the prompt. Nothing wrong with that. I completed it at the base level. Maybe I'll come back to it when I have a little energy, but not enough motivation, or when I have a spare minute. With that though, I'm going to call this one done and move on to the next one. If I remembered what number I counted to in my head, I'd count them out loud now, but I recorded the video a couple days ago, and I'm voicing it a couple days later, so there's no way I remember. And then the prompt will be this one. Chocolate chip. So, there really wasn't much to this one. I started with a fairly big one because I was planning on, shading, but it's a chocolate chip. They're dark, and that's a lot of shading. So I was content to just attempt to get the shapes right, meaning a lot of tiny chocolate chips all over the prompt page. They're not super interesting though. Hopefully they look like chocolate chips. There's not much to their silhouette, so some of them kind of look like poop, but they're not. They're chocolate, I swear. Anyway, next one. I'm hoping for something a bit more involved than a chocolate chip, because as delicious as they are, I'm not super entertained by drawing them, and they're probably not very entertaining to watch. So let's go with this page and this prompt. Cocktail umbrella. Perfect. I don't know about you, but I love these little things. I think they're so cute, and I bet they'd be a really fun craft if I were a crafty person. I'm not, so that's probably out the window, but at least they're nice to look at. Hopefully they're okay to draw. I wanted to draw one at a bit of an angle rather than straight on from the side or the top or bottom. I needed something more dynamic to offset the simplicity of the chocolate chips. Besides, perspective is easier to change when the shape you're trying to recreate is a bunch of straight lines. The only real difficult part was the foreshortening of the side of the umbrella paper closest to me and the crinkling of the paper. But that's the great thing about sketching, the lines don't have to be perfect, and with folds they can be pretty haphazard and still look alright. And the folds were really fun, as long as the folds on the things are straight at least. Curvy and complicated folds like those on clothing though, less fun, pass. It was also a little annoying to keep the lines straight and thin and comparable to each other, but I think it worked out for the most part. I'm just being nitpicky at this point. I actually had a lot of fun with this one, and I think so far this one's my favorite. Just the right amount of detail I wanted to include without it looking too over detailed. And definitely makes up for those chocolate chips. I've said chocolate so much I'm getting hungry. After adding just a little bit of shading underneath to give the sketch some depth, I called it good and moved on to the next one. So I was aiming for this prompt pick to be the last one, but you'll see why it isn't in just a second. I picked this page and then this prompt. The head of a worm. Yeah. If there wasn't much to the chocolate chips, there really wasn't much to work with when it came to this prompt. Part of it was that I just wasn't feeling this prompt, but without a whole lot of detail to really add, I'm not sure if there was much I could do. I gave it a shot and added a tiny little mouth with itty bitty dagger teeth, not that you can see from this angle, and then I gave up. So yeah. So because that last one wasn't great, I decided to try for one last prompt to save this video from ending in disaster, or to attempt at least, assuming I didn't pick something, completely terrible again. I was really hoping that luck would be on my side, and I picked this page, and then this prompt, a honeysuckle blossom. And when I say I took a big sigh of relief, I mean it. It was audible. And that's because I grew up with honeysuckle flowers growing in vines off my front porch. We had a lattice that a friend had built for us, and the vines were so happy to just climb all over it and bloom. So every time you opened the front door in the summer, you were met with a lattice covered in honeysuckle flowers. And it was so pretty. Does that mean I remember exactly what they look like? Sorta. Do I still look up a quick reference to make sure I'm correct? Absolutely. I used to draw them a lot at one point, but a refresher is always nice to have. And I'll try and describe it, but fair warning, I don't know what the proper terms for a flower are, but the way I piece it together is that there's this beginning tube that fans out like a trumpet at the top, and then there's usually like one lip or petal that peels downward, and from the center sprout a bunch of long pollen thingies. They look like clear spaghetti noodles with mini flowers on the end to me, so that's what I'm calling them. The great thing about drawing flowers is that other than those vague shapes and parts, the rest is fairly easy to make it up as you go. It makes adding details really easy because as long as you follow the shape, you really can't go wrong. Of course, I say that, but then I go a little overboard with the shading on the inside because I wanted to make it look like one continuous petal, but the curve was a bit too strong, and then I overcorrected and lost the shapes of the little spaghetti noodles. So I relined them and added shading to the tube parts in the beginning and paused to mentally zoom back out and see where I was at, then shaded some more, and some more. Somebody make me stop, please. Anyway, I did eventually stop, and here's the finished result. So in the end, I filled out 6 prompts. This leaves me with 628 prompts left to go altogether, meaning I'm probably going to have to do like 20 of these every video if I want to actually finish this book before I'm 30, or more, probably. I'm not about to do that math though. Instead, I'm going to look at the work I've made and be proud of them. Well, most of them. I'm looking at you, Wormy. Personally, I think my favorite is between the cocktail umbrella and the honeysuckle. The finger puppets I also like, but mostly because I think I did a good job on the hand for using so few lines. When it comes to overall appearance though, I'm going to go with the cocktail umbrella. I just can't handle how cute it is. Like, look at it. And that's where I'll call it for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, maybe consider leaving a like or commenting down below what your favorite sketch was. I upload every Tuesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to see my content when it comes out. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.